Good morning. Jeff Kentagala here with CarShowz.com. I got Mike Boone here. I'm honored for Mike to take the time to meet with us this morning because it's hard, it's a weekend. People taking time out of their schedule to meet up with us. We appreciate it. So good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. So Mike has been in the scene just as long as I have. We're not going to mention years because we're old, and we don't do that. But what I wanted to get with Mike because Mike is his story is interesting to me because his current build, he's got a '96 S10 mini truck, fully custom. We'll get into the build, but Mike is across the spectrum of genres. He's just like me. I started on the import side. I have a Shelby muscle car now. Kind of go to a lot of classic shows, truck shows, mini truck shows, and that's kind of where Mike is. So I wanted to sit down with Mike, kind of capture his story, dive into his truck build, kind of figure out what the inspiration is behind that, the creative thinking for the build with Mike, and kind of just go from there, and we'll just chop it up, right?
Yep, definitely.
So let's talk about your 96 S10. So you're a member of the Evil Car and Truck Club.
Yep.
So I know you've been heading out to shows this year and past years. So let's dive into your truck build. I wanna touch on one of the very first things on your list here because I got the build sheet in front of me. Mike sent it over. It's got the hot rod by Boyd Gotcha 2 wheels. So to me, like right away, I'm like, that's an iconic wheel. Were they hard to find?
So, Chris Coddington actually started remaking his dad's wheels. So they're actually, I guess they're called the Retro series. So I wouldn't say they were hard to find, but
They're a remake.
Yeah, he pretty much makes them to your spec now.
Okay.
So I mean,
So
back
you
in the
reached
day,
out to Chris.
yeah, back in the day, you could only find them in certain sizes for whatever Boyd was making them in. But now he can pretty much make them whatever you want to,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool because I did an 18 on the front and a 20 in the rear, but he was able to do the offset and the back spacing for the rear to make it fit for what I have going on back there with the rear disc setup and whatnot, which was pretty cool. So,
And you just recently installed those, right? Or
yes, yep,
okay,
yep.
cool.
I actually ordered them last year. Pretty much nobody knew that I ordered them. Kept it under wraps just because I wanted to do something cool. Got them in relatively pretty quick timing and put them on this year before we went down to mini nats, and it took a little while for me to get used to seeing them on the truck because I was so used to seeing my old wheels, but I love the way they look on there. I wanted an old school wheel, and that's definitely an old school wheel.
Yeah.
So
Now I was gonna say, I mean, over the years, again, any car, truck, whatever it is that you build, the stance is important, and the
Right.
wheel, right? Like that's the foundation, right, of the vehicle.
right. The funny thing is, we were just out at Columbus Good Guys over the weekend, and we were leaving on Saturday to leave the show, and a guy comes walking up as we were pulling out, and he's like, "Man, I love the wheel." He goes, "Most people just completely screw up a wheel and it messes up their build." He goes, "You killed it with that wheel."
That's
And
awesome.
it was like the first time I've ever heard somebody say that, and I was like, "Hey, man, thanks, I appreciate that." So
I mean, and that's the other cool thing again with sitting down with you is taking a mini truck to Good Guys or any of these old school shows, and it's just neat to be able to take your build and bring it into a whole different again I keep saying genre of shows, but it's cool because you're just spreading the mini truck community out there, and it's neat when you have old school guys come up to you and talk to you about your build.
Oh yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, it was definitely cool. There wasn't. We went to the Street Rod show in York, the NSRA show. I think total there was probably 4 or 5 mini trucks there the whole weekend, and out in Columbus there was from what I saw and what other people saw, there was really only 2 mini trucks. There was a bunch of S10s and Rangers and stuff, but there wasn't that many mini trucks there. So it was pretty cool to be one of the only mini trucks out there.
Yeah,
so,
that is awesome.
Yeah,
and it is neat because to me, again, you know, we got the Boyd wheels on there, even just your paint scheme. Like, you still have old school elements of your build kind of throughout your truck, which is cool to me. Right. So it just shows your history, you know, being around in the scene. And that's the fun part of walking around any build, really, and just kind of picking out the little details. And I know your truck, like, it's cleanly done to where when people walk around, I mean, they start looking, they'll find the details and the customization that's done from a, I don't know, 50-yard view back looking at the truck. You're like, it's a clean S10. But again, you walk up on it, you're like, okay, this is custom. That's custom. There's custom bolts here. There's, and then it starts to get into the details.
It's hard to make an S10 stand out because an S10 is basically the easiest truck to build in the mini truck scene. So, I mean, you got to try to do the little touches if you want to make it stand out. So,
yeah, for sure. So the other thing I wanted to touch on, you had custom switch box in here, and I don't know why I'm focusing just on that. I mean, we can talk about the plumbing, the air ride, and that kind of thing. But personally, I know you as a badass tradesman, plumber. You've done some work at my house. I've seen the work you've done. I think it's neat that you can take your skill set and experience and incorporate that into the truck. Right. I can do some hands-on stuff and bolt some things up here and there, but it's different when you can, sit down and do some things on your own, especially like plumbing your air ride, for example.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted you to kind of touch on that a little bit. Like, I know there were specific things, like even just your air ride and kind of plumbing that in. And
right.
I don't know, talk about the inspiration behind that and kind of what gave you the idea and what elements did you want to incorporate into your truck from your trade?
Yeah, like a lot of the hard lining in the bed is soft copper. Just being in the trade for 23 years, I wanted to bring some of that, like you say, element in. A lot of guys use aluminum, stainless steel, copper. I always seem to go the extra mile. Like when I plumbed mine up, I was thinking ahead and thought, okay, well, if this happens, I want to be able to, let's just say if a compressor went down and I wasn't able to put air in a tank, I want to be able to have an air chuck fitting to go to a gas station and plumb it up or air it up. I mean, I know a lot of guys do that. Some guys overlook that. It was just like if I'm in a mechanical room at a building that I'm doing, I always try to look forward to help out the next guy. If something would happen, what am I going to be able to do to make their life easier? So I tried to make my life easier. And then another thing I did, I added extra check valves where probably most guys wouldn't, just because if I blow an airline, I don't want to let the truck lay in the middle of the highway or the road somewhere. Most of the stuff you don't see now because I have the topper on. But back when I first built the truck, you could basically see all of the plumbing and the copper and everything. So I do kind of miss that, but I do like it now because with the topper on, now I can throw stuff back there and don't have to worry about suitcases getting wet and stuff like that, because we do drive it everywhere. The only time I ever want to see that thing on a trailer or a tow truck is if it breaks down. So.
And do you have? I know you have a show board. Do you have pictures of all the plumbing and stuff? Like, do you display that when you head out to shows? All the
occasionally I have a photo album that I take sometimes. Sometimes I'll sit it out just like there's the process of the build and stuff. Good. So it goes through all the steps from when the truck was a red truck with a ladder rack that a guy used. He was a carpenter, and it was a basic work truck. So. Yeah, and now it's what it is. So
full show truck. Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. The next thing I want to touch on is the custom painted graphics. So talk to me about the graphic design and layout. So I know this was a collaboration with your daughter. She had a big part
Right.
of that.
Right.
So take me through that whole. I mean, because it's insane. Like I love it, and I love the meaning behind it. So
Right.
take me through that.
When I decided to start with this truck, I started talking to a buddy of mine that was going to paint it for me, my buddy Keith Kadish, and I asked him, I said, "Can you do multiple graphics for me?" And he said, "Absolutely." He said, "Just pick out a bunch of colors and kind of let me know what you want to do." Well, I wanted to pick out the colors, but I wanted him as the artist to do his thing. You know, I don't want to tell an artist how to do their job. You know, that's definitely not what I wanted to do. So I wanted my daughter to be involved with it, obviously. So took her to a paint shop. We walked in and I sat her down at the counter and I asked the paint guy, I said, "Can you bring out your chip books?" He said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "I have no clue." I said, "We're just looking at paint chips for graphics." He brought out like 3 or 4 different paint chip books and she started looking through them. We were there for probably 3 or 4 hours. I think we picked out a total of 12 or 14 different colors that she saw and liked. The first color that she saw was this color called bubblegum pink. And she swore to God that I was not going to put that color on my truck. And that's the first color that I told the guy to mix me up a pint of. So, because I told her, I said, any color that you want on this truck, I'm putting on this truck. So
Right on.
that went into the leopard print that's on my truck. Because after we picked that color, she said, "Would you do leopard print?" And I said, "Absolutely." So she had a piece of Victoria's Secret's wrapping paper that she got in a bag from Christmas, and it had the leopard print on it. And she gave it to Keith, and she said, "This is what I want it to look like," and he made it look exactly like that.
Right
So,
on. All right.
and then she actually helped lay out some of that leopard print graphic on the truck with him where it was going to be at, and that was the cool part of it. So she's picked out every graphic color. We actually drove through probably 4 or 5 car lots looking at cars just to find the base color of the truck. So she picked out that color also. I wanted
What is the base? What's the base color?
It's it's a Cadillac color. It's called like son of a gun gray. It has multiple names, but it's a GM color.
That's cool. So you guys you were driving through a lot, saw a Caddy.
Yep.
And that was the base. That was it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So,
awesome.
But yep, she's had a lot of inspiration on the truck, but definitely behind the graphics. And then so I gave Keith a box of paint and said, "This is what you got to work with," and he came up with everything. So I had no clue what anything was going to look like. So
he just did his thing.
Yep.
So the process from beginning to end, you and your daughter picking out colors and trying to figure that out. How long did that take? For the paint,
just the paint or the whole
for the paint job.
The whole paint job. He had the truck probably 6 or 7 months, but he worked on it in his free time.
But did it take you you and your daughter time to kind of figure colors out, or what was that span of like a week or two, or
it was longer? It was a couple weeks.
Okay.
I mean, so it didn't take too long, but
okay, yeah, because I know that process could take a while, just to figure out what you want to do, and
right.
That's awesome.
But,
so you mentioned. So of course, I was kind of focused in on the paint job and the colors. What other areas of the truck did you collaborate with your daughter on? What other ideas did she bring to the table?
Like with the interior stuff, she helped pick out the color of the vinyl and the material.
So let's talk about that real quick. And and not to cut you off, I apologize, but that was my next topic, getting into the Acura dash and the door panels. So just to kind of paint the picture for the audience. So I guess I don't even know where to begin on that. I guess just give me an idea of like, where did you come up with that? The iPad in the dashboard, and it's insane, right? And it's so clean, it fits well. So again, give me an idea of the inspiration behind that, and then add in the elements of like where your daughter contributed, you know what I mean, throughout. So, because that could be a whole separate interview in itself. But let's get into that. So I just wanted to paint the picture. What was it 2006 Acura RL dash and door panels, right?
Yep.
And then you have an iPad, an insane iPad in the middle dash, which is cool to me because a lot of the EV vehicles and such are doing that, right? So it's like it's cool because you modernize, you know, your interior and it just flows. It's insane. It's so clean. All right, I'll shut up and I'll let you talk now.
So I have this friend Glenn that we've known each other since like the mid 1990s. We're going way back. And he hands down is probably, I'm not going to say probably, he is one of the best fabricators and car audio guys in the country. And he will look at you and tell you that he's not, but he is. I said to him, I said, I want to do an interior in this. I want to do a custom dash. And we were throwing around ideas of just making something originally. And he finally said, you know, go walk around junkyards and see if you can find a dashboard from a car that looks cool. I said, okay. So a couple weekends, I was walking around junkyards, taking pictures, sending them to him. Nah, not that. That doesn't look cool. That's whatever. That's too boxy. Whatever. Went and saw this Acura RL, sent the picture to him. He's like, that looks kind of cool. I said, okay. So went the next weekend, got the dashboard and the door panels and stuff. Set the Acura dashboard next to the S10 dashboard, and it was night and day. The Acura dashboard was almost twice the size of the S10 dashboard. And I thought to myself, how is this even going to work? When he started it within a half an hour, he had the Acura dashboard cut down and just mocked up sitting in the truck, ready to be, you know, fabricated, mounts made and stuff, and to go from there. Basically, I wanted to try to keep the outside of the truck old school looking, but I wanted the inside to be kind of like more of like a luxury new age look. He definitely accomplished that with what he did. Not to take anything away from manufacturers, but that interior in that truck looks like it should go in that truck. Most people don't even realize that it's not an S10 interior. When people look at it and realize that it's not from that truck, they have a million questions like, how did you make it fit? How did you do this? How did you do that? And I'm not one to ever like gatekeep and try to hold stuff back. I tell people exactly how it was done. It was amazing to watch him do his work, because I mean, definitely a true craftsman at what he does. When he would start on it, he'd be like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And 2 or 3 hours later, it would be done. And it's like, dude, how did you do that? You know, it was crazy. But I mean, to
master at his craft.
Yeah. But when you tell people we did it in another buddy's garage, and really just with hand tools and a table saw and stuff like that, it blows people's minds. It wasn't
that alone makes
it a big shop. So
that alone makes it a whole experience in itself.
Right.
I mean, people. It's fun building rides and customizing, but life's short, and at the end of the day, you're creating memories with those guys. Right. You know, and that's the cool thing is, like you said, old school in the garage, hand tools, and just music probably blaring, laughing.
It was most of the time. It was 3 of us, just
probably some cursing, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Maybe some tools thrown around, but but you're creating memories.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Definitely good times.
When did you decide to incorporate the iPad? Was that always a part of the plan from the beginning, or did that kind of just come about?
So originally it was they called it a Tesla style radio that I had gotten put in there. And it was like an Android based tablet radio thing. And it worked for like the first year or two. I had no clue how to work the thing. I knew how to turn the volume up and down, and that was it, because I'm an Apple guy. And then finally I said to him, I'm like, look, dude, I can't work this thing. Can we put an actual iPad in the dash so I can actually work it? He said, yeah, that's cool. So About 2 years ago, we put the actual iPad in the dash, and that's what controls that's the actual radio. So
Did you have to? Was there? You had the Tesla style radio or whatever in there. The screen. Was there a lot of customization to get the iPad in there? I mean, was it?
the iPad screen the iPad was actually just a little bit smaller than the Tesla style screen.
Okay.
So the bezel actually still worked for what he needed to do. I got there was a company that made a piece that he molded into the trim piece that was already in there, and
That's
he
good.
made his magic work. And
yeah, because people don't understand the fit and finish and the finer details of things, and just the level of effort that goes into customizing, right? I mean, especially a dashboard, that's your centerpiece. People walk up, that's the first thing they see.
Yep.
So that's good. It actually worked out, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Talk about the integration of the iPad into the electronics and getting it connected up. Was it? I mean, I know they have controllers and modules and that kind of thing. Was it hard to get everything integrated?
No. Basically, now I'm not a new car audio guy. I'm still an old car audio guy.
Yeah.
But they have so basically you just come out of the iPad and it goes into a basically like a processor. It goes from like the lightning cable to an RCA cable, and then it goes out to your audio. And
okay, so it's pretty easy.
In between it, there's a knob that I use for my volume to turn it up and down, and that's
pretty straightforward.
Yep.
And they make it so easy these days. I feel like, back in the day, you'd have to, you have wiring harnesses and you're splicing and doing all kinds of craziness. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on with regards to any of the customization to your truck? I know we talked about your air ride and paint job, your interior, the wheels, because I want to dive into the Nomad. I want to dive into the back in the day with your dad in the garage. But I wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything else you wanted to add on the truck.
I mean, other than the truck was basically just built, by friends of mine or friends of friends. Like the suspension was done by a friend of a friend, so it never like went to a big shop. I would say that the only time a shop per se really ever did anything to the truck was the seats, just because of the stitching and stuff that needed done.
Sure.
But that was done by Brad down at Stitched, and
Brad's one of the boys too.
Yeah,
I consider Brad as one of the guys in the garage with us.
Yeah.
But he's amazing at what he does.
Yeah, he came and did my headliner for me in my buddy's garage. So I mean, Brad's a mini trucker at heart, so he's I wouldn't consider, if Brad could bring a sewing machine to the garage, he would, I think.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's one of the guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does amazing work, and just seeing the where he took his business, is just amazing.
Right.
He's obviously did my Corolla, the interior, and
Right.
So where he is now is just next level insane. Yeah, so that's awesome that Brad had a hand in that.
Yeah, and that's like the thing I like with this truck. Like I don't ever want to take anything away from somebody that has something done at shops and stuff. I like to be able to be hands on, and it's fun to be with your buddies in the garage and do the stuff. And if I can't do it, hopefully one of my buddies can do it, and then I can return the favor for them with something that I can do. So
you're creating those memories, and you're keeping those relationships going, which is important these days.
Right.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
So I ask a question, of course, trying to dig a little deep into what makes people tick. And, so I asked them, tell us about yourself. And then specifically, like, how did you get into the automotive scene? And you had mentioned you were just born into cars, right? Like you mentioned your dad had a 56 Chevy Nomad and you spent time in the garage with him. Tell me about that car. Tell me about your memories with your dad. Like, take us back when you were running around in diapers and around in the garage handing your dad wrenches and stuff. Like, that's, let's hear some, I want to hear some history on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this garage that I'm sitting in right now is the garage that he built his Nomad in. So
that's right there. That's a story in itself. That's right on.
Yep. So it's pretty cool to be able to have my truck sitting in this garage and me basically doing the same thing. But I mean, as far back as I can remember, the Nomad was the first car that I've ever remember being in, going to shows. And I remember walking around with him and my mom and my sister looking at other cars, and times in the garage here when he was working on something or in the alleyway washing it, I would help him wash it. He had an upholstery shop with my grandfather, so I would sit on the workbenches over there and watch them do things, or watch him work on the car over there.
What does your dad, I don't mean to cut you off, but what does your dad think of your interior right now in your truck? What were his thoughts when he saw it?
So
since he has that history.
Yeah. So when we got the interior done, I sat him in the truck, and he didn't say anything for probably a good 5 to 10 minutes. And then finally he said it looked amazing.
He's just taking it all in.
Yeah. So he'll tell you that when him and my grandfather were in business, my dad always wanted to do the custom stuff, and my grandfather never wanted to because he said there was no money in it. But he said that my grandfather would be proud of the way that it looks and the way that we did everything. So that meant a lot to me. And then I told my dad, I said, he would be the same way if the shop was still open and I would be there working with him, because I would want to do the custom stuff and he would probably want to do the stuff that made the easy money and brought the money in every day. For him to say that he was proud of it and he loved it, it blew my mind. But I've taken him to actually Brad's shop a couple times, and
nice.
Him and Brad will just sit there and talk, and it's pretty cool to see them interact, because it's like two different generations of upholstery, and just the stories that they tell each other is pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, and the details, he was probably able to sit there, even just the dash and looking at everything, he probably was able to pick out every detail.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that was changed, everything that was custom, right?
Yep.
And that's probably exactly what he was doing when he sat there and didn't say anything, right? For a few minutes, he was just taking it all in.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Yep.
Kind of a little sidetrack on that, but that was kind of cool. I wanted to learn about that since your dad had that history and your grandfather. Going back to the Nomad, paint us the picture of that car. Like what was done to that car? Obviously, the interior probably was badass, I'm sure, right?
So he basically kept the car stock.
Okay.
It had a 327 in it, which that car came, I believe, with like a 265. So it had a 327 in it, which my dad was a street racer back in the day, and then he used to go to US 30 Dragway, which is actually the Thomasville Airport here in York, Pennsylvania. They used to drag race there on the weekends, and it was actually a sanctioned drag strip for a couple years. So he was a drag racer at heart. So I remember him blowing up the motor in that Nomad, actually at South Mountain Dragway, and we had to have it towed back to York, and he got it towed to up to Dover, Pennsylvania, to Rodney Guerreri's shop. So if anybody from this area, they know who Rodney Guerreri is. So I remember watching them rebuild his motor, and they put another 327 back in it.
How old were you back then?
What's that?
I'm sorry. How old were you back then?
I might have been 9, 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I was little.
Okay.
So, but other than that, the interior, vinyl seats, button tuck vinyl seats. I mean, and that was custom back then.
Okay. So you did have his little elements of customization in there.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yep. Wasn't anything crazy. Didn't have the cloth interior in it that would have came with it. But it was definitely, it was a unique car to me. I mean, I love that car to death. So
did you ever get to drive it?
No. So the other issue with that car is he had, for some reason, wanted a heavy duty clutch in it. So every time I sat in it and tried to push down on the clutch, I couldn't even. Yeah. I had to push with my hands.
Yeah.
On my knee. So he has real bad diabetes, and basically kept him from driving it. So back in the early 2000s, he sold the car. Eventually, I'm still thinking I'd like to try to maybe see what happened to it and possibly see about getting it back if it's still around.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Not sure if it's still in the area or not.
I know it went down south to, I think, South Carolina.
Okay.
So not
Okay.
sure. Not sure what happened to it from there.
Might be able to track it down by the VIN or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So part of that question again, we talked about you mentioned your dad's Nomad. You also mentioned about just a lot of different styles, and trucks and stuff back in the day. So the types of shows. I mean, your dad raced. Did you guys go to shows and stuff back then?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the inspiration of seeing different things and kind of what got you into the different genres today.
Yep. Yeah. Our family vacations were going to shows. We didn't go to the beach for family vacations or anything. Like we went to like national Nomad meets or Nomad shows or car shows for family vacations. So in fact, I didn't go to the beach until I was like 12 for the first time. So
oh wow.
And just because it was a Nomad meet at the beach. So
that's awesome. We talked about Nomad, and then what got you into minitruckin? I mean, was that back in the day, or like what year did you start getting into the mini truck scene?
Well, going to all those shows with them, sitting in the back of that Nomad, it was before cell phones and everything else. So basically would always just go get magazines to read, and it was always Minitruckin magazine, Lowrider and Euro Lowrider is what I would always get to read while we were going to the shows and back from the shows. And I told myself eventually I either want to build a lowrider or a mini truck. It took a while, but I finally built my mini truck. So
the magazines, I mean, so literally you creating the memories with your families, traveling to events, and then you had the magazines. That's what kind of started the craziness.
Yep.
Lowrider magazines and yeah.
Yep.
So we talked about, we got VWs, the Rukus. What was the inspiration to building the Rukus? The Honda Rukus.
Midlife crisis.
Oh, so that's probably going to the import shows and seeing everybody with a Rukus. You're like, screw it, I'm going to build one.
Actually just seeing I saw one on Instagram. I was like, what is that thing? And just started like looking at it, and I'm like, man, that thing's kind of cool. And then just like started like looking, and I'm like, I want to get one of them. And I found like an almost bone stock Rukus and
started
bought
building it.
And then just went down that rabbit hole.
That's wild. Okay. Yeah. See, that I would have never guessed. Instagram and then, yeah. But I mean, the cool thing is the open mind, right? And that's just learning about your history, traveling with your family, looking through different magazines. And then, you come across an Instagram post with a Rukus and you're like, all right, cool. Like, that's cool to me. Yeah.
Yeah. It just happened to pop up one day and I'm like, what is that? That thing's kind of cool looking, and I had no clue what it was.
So you build it, and then you want to go back through and do a rebuild at some point. You had mentioned.
Yeah. So I built that thing probably 8-9 years ago, and then I started building my truck about 6 years ago. So it's been sitting for 6 years, and it's due.
Are you gonna do same scheme? Like, are you gonna try to match your truck? Maybe pull the cap off your truck? No, so it's gonna be a completely separate build. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
yeah, I just basically give it like its own identity.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So. That's cool. And then you have your mini truck, you have your Rukus, you have your Nomad, and then you have a Mustang in there too.
Yeah, I mean, I got to play the lottery to win. So, but yeah, I mean,
we all do, brother. That'd be the dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be the dream. So I asked the question, who is your favorite car truck builder? You mentioned your dad, your father.
Right.
So you took us through the history, just spending as much time as you have with him. You also mentioned Sean Mahaney.
Right.
So Sean, we'll dive into this a little bit later. Like, I want to talk about social media and how it's impacting the scene now, good and bad, right?
Right.
I think one of the benefits we get to follow or friend our inspiration, the folks that have been in the scene for a while, these awesome builders. So, I had the honor to be able to follow Sean and kind of see some of the things he got into.
Right.
So take us back to that. I mean, you mentioned this was back at the Master Images Customs, right? And they build Krew Cut. Krew Cut's still out there. Dave owns it he's down in Florida, I think.
Florida,
right?
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So take us back to, how did you discover Sean? Take us into his work, what inspired you, I guess, and to follow him. And I guess the ultimate question, why Sean, right? There's a million builders out there.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely it was definitely Krew Cut for me. I mean, that truck was way ahead of its time when it came out and was on the cover of the magazines. I mean, a long bed dually with no top on it. I mean, who did that? I mean, other than a bunch of guys on the West Coast. I mean, and then just, obviously back then, the only way you could follow people is via magazine before the internet. Seeing the work that they did back then was cool. I mean, I was still obviously young at the time and didn't know a lot about the stuff back then, but then getting to see the stuff that he was getting into before he passed away with like the wheelchairs and stuff.
That's what did really it for me.
Cool. Yeah. That was really cool. And just the way that, like, he was giving back to everybody was awesome. So
I think there's a lot of great people out in the scene these days, but I think that's a big part of that's missing, right? Because I feel like a lot of people have kind of their own agenda. They're doing their own thing. And there's not a lot of people like Sean out there. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, there are a good bit of people out there doing good stuff. But you know what I'm saying? It just, just feels different these days, I guess. That's awesome. Yeah, Krew Cut. Did you have an opportunity to see it after it was rebuilt?
I've seen it a couple times at Mini Nats.
Okay.
It's
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool truck. I didn't get to see it personally back in the day. Friends of mine from here in York were actually out on the West Coast when it was built originally, so they got to see it, and I've actually seen like actual pictures of it. Yeah.
And that because they obviously had it out at Lone Star Throwdown, right? Down in Texas, Conroe. February. So those guys, it's kind of neat because that show's at a big fairgrounds and everybody pretty much parades around, all weekend and kind of just cruises around. So it's kind of neat to see everybody getting a ride in Krew Cut and just kind of pile it in there. And the smiles from ear to ear, it's just such an iconic truck. So we are kind of the old school hot rod guys, right? So as much as we don't want to admit it, we're getting old and, I'll just kind of leave it at that. We're not going to touch any more on that. But I do want to touch on the, some of the lessons learned, some of the advice that you could give to some of the younger up-and-coming builders or folks that want to customize vehicles. So one of the biggest things you had mentioned is patience.
Oh, yeah.
So let's kind of dive into that, based off of your experience, your dad's experience, your grandfather's experience, all your experience in the garage, all your friends, all you guys have been grinding and wrenching. And, what advice would you give to people that are up and coming right now and building vehicles?
Yeah, that patience is definitely the biggest one. I can tell you when I was doing like my Civic and my Beetle and stuff back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I had no patience. I wanted it right now, right? It got to be done now. Got to do this. Got to do that. As I got older, I knew it couldn't be that way anymore. So definitely the patience factor is the big thing. Do it right the first time is definitely a big one. I think the thing that kills a lot of builds, I don't know if calling it like the Amazon factor, everybody wants their stuff, their parts the next day. And a lot of, if you're getting custom parts built, sometimes it takes a couple months to get your parts, and people don't understand that. But like, you could go on eBay and buy a part and have it there the next day or 2 days later, but it's not going to be a quality part. So
yeah, there are a lot of molds, right? Chinese,
yeah,
everybody's doing molds. What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these shops that are fabricating machinists, or there's most times it's just them. It's a
yeah,
family operated
yeah,
business, right? So like you
yeah,
said, be patient, right? Because they're building you a piece that's going to be durable.
yeah,
It's going to last a while, and you're not going
yeah.
to have to worry about it. So be patient.
Yeah, some of these, some of these fabricated metal parts, you get them in the weld. I'm not a welder; I can't weld to save my life. But some of these welds, I mean, it's like, man, like, I wouldn't trust driving on that.
Yeah.
So it's like patience is definitely the biggest thing that I would say.
The other thing you had mentioned is be yourself, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
so build what you want to build. Don't let anyone influence you in a negative way.
yep,
I guess even with social media nowadays, right? That's probably one of the negatives we can put in that category, is just
oh yeah,
everybody has something to say.
yep, yep.
And those
It's
people that are
it's
good.
usually why did you do this? Why didn't you do it this way?
And I was gonna say these are the people that are kind of running their mouths behind the keyboards, or they haven't built anything. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So those are folks that probably shouldn't be saying anything. And
right.
again, I'm not a guy that goes and wrenches. I mean, I can do some things here and there, So I just keep my mouth shut. If I see something and I don't like it, I'm like, all right, I keep scrolling. But there's some folks that are not shy,
Oh yeah,
and unfortunately, that's peer pressure, all the craziness going on today. Those few words are enough to kind of discourage somebody, right? To
yep,
from doing, they're just done and they'll quit.
yeah,
So I think that's great advice. Be yourself. You got to have thick skin.
yeah,
At the end of the day, I always say keep your circle small, right? I always say that if there's people running their mouths, delete, block, and keep it moving, right?
yep,
Not worth the energy.
right, right.
Talked about next on the list I had is I wanted to kind of figure out what the future is, and we talked about the Rukus. We also talked about you potentially building a Nomad or a 60s Mustang. Is there anything else? I mean, the truck. I mean, we talked about, is there any future plans for the truck? I mean, me personally, I don't think there's much left to do,
No,
but we're
I'm at
never
a
done.
I'm
We're
at a
never
point
done though,
now that
right?
yeah, you're never done, but I'm at a point now that I'm happy where
Good,
it's at.
good.
Um, it's it's a great driver. Knock on wood. It's been to Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Drove it there. Just got back from Columbus, Ohio. Drove it there. Um,
I think we passed you. Were you heading down south? Were you going to Mini Nats? I think
yep.
when. So yeah, we were taking our oldest daughter to college in North Carolina, and I don't know. You were a couple hours from home, I think, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
about an hour or so from home, and I'm cruising down 95 South, and I looked over and I said to my wife Jen, I said, "There's Booney." I mean, I was so damn excited because that truck looks amazing going down the highway, and I'm like, "Get your camera," she's right. She was hanging out the
Yep.
passenger
Hanging out the
window,
window.
snapping pictures as you're rolling down 95 South. So that was wild too, right? Because like just being in the scene, you know everybody. It's a small world, and you're cruising
Right.
down the highway. There was traffic, right?
Oh
It
yeah.
was congested, and out of nowhere, I see this S10. I'm like, "Hey, there's Booney." So that was pretty badass, So
Yep.
unplanned, we're both a couple hours away from our houses, and yeah, so that was
Yep.
cool. Yeah, and
Yep.
that's a pretty good trip. I mean, right to
Oh yeah.
drive, so no problems or anything, huh?
No. Nope. I mean, it's been a good truck. I mean, that's the good thing. And I
Yeah,
built it to drive it, and that's knock on wood. Like I said, it's been a good. It has its chips and dings and dents
sure.
from
Yeah, it's a driver.
driving it, but
Yeah. I mean,
it's
those are your battle scars, right? Those are
right.
creating memories in itself, right? You guys are
Right.
cruising out to Ohio, down Pittsburgh. You've been out to, I think, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Mini nets, and yeah. So yeah, those are battle scars, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
It's been up to almost the Canadian border up in New York. I mean, it's been a lot of places. So it's
how many miles?
oh
How many miles on the truck?
it's got almost 200,000 on it, and I think I've put probably close to 40,000 on it since I've gotten it.
Right on. Yeah,
So
cool. And it's It still goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's comfortable ride too. That
Oh
new
my
interior.
God.
Yeah.
Dude, you ask my buddy Corey, he'll tell you that's the most comfortable interior he's ever sat in.
Right on. So it's purpose built, you know, it looks
yeah.
good and you want to get it and be able to drive it.
Yep.
So let's talk about the scene, what it is today compared to what it was back then. I don't even really know where to begin. I mean, because both of us, like, you know, we got NOPI, you know, all the NOPI events. We got hot import nights.
Yeah.
Most of the old school shows.
The lowrider.
All the
lowrider tours.
And the cool thing is the lowrider tours are still around, and those are still pretty big. Obviously, NOPI is no longer around. They tried to make a comeback a few years ago, but you know that didn't work.
I did see they're bringing it back next year.
Really?
2025.
That's breaking news. Oh, we'll have to. Okay, so I mean, literally, like the show and part of it, or
no, just the show.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Okay, so all right, that was like the Super Bowl of
I'll have to
Nopis.
find the post to send it to you.
Yeah, absolutely, because I have not seen that yet, and you'd think I would know, but yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, definitely. And then Import Face Off, their shows are all over, right? So Cliff is doing an amazing job with those events, and those are similar to. I mean, those very much remind me of the old school NOPI.
Now, and actually, I'm going to Tuner Revolution in Philly next weekend.
Tuner Revolution, yep. So Jay and team, and they're all over the place now, right? So they pretty much have a tour all throughout the U.S. I know they go down to Puerto Rico, and so that's awesome. And I think that's, to me, again, that's badass because you're taking a mini truck to an import show, you know, tuner show, right? So yeah, I mean, I think for me, the show scene, it's changed, but the sponsors are still there. A lot of the big events, if you go to, like Lone Star Throwdown, Classic Truck Throwdown, going down to Texas. You know, I've always said if the venue, the location is right, then the people will come, the vendors will come, right?
Right. So
having that space in a convention center of some sort indoors is probably preferable, right? Because then you're out of the elements.
Right.
Or having a nice sized fairground, you know, like Carlisle's, you know, they bring in massive amounts of vehicles and spectators. Right. And I mean, to me personally, I know people say, the scene, you know, it's dead. And then it's pretty much, it's still thriving. I mean, obviously that's what our CarShowz website is we list car show, you know, truck show events throughout the U.S.
Right.
I don't know. Let's talk about what are some of the memorable events that you've attended back in the day.
Well, I mean, definitely the NOPI.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to NOPI for probably 5 years, and I went to NOPI before it was actually at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, when it was still at the amphitheater.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
and they did their NOPI tour, right? So they would come up to Maryland International Raceway.
Yeah.
I actually have a funny story. We can talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, so they would have the NOPI tour, but Atlanta was like the big, right?
That was the big show.
One. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Thousands of cars.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah. And then you would have, I mean, it's not really a rally, but you'd have cruises, right? I mean, meeting up all over the U.S., just cruising to a NOPI event, which was insane. You know, I can't remember what year it was. NOPI, Maryland International Raceway, had the old Corolla. Took it down there. I was parked all weekend, you know, and just hanging out. Of course, they had racing, right? So they had the drag racing and stuff going on. And I'd say probably about a month or so after the event, I get a letter in the mail from Geico, my insurance company, saying that they're dropping me. So I'm reading, you know, this letter, and it says, you're using your vehicle to race. So what are you talking about? So I call them up, and they're like, yeah, your vehicle is racing at an event, and yet, you know, such and such. And I'm like, can you provide me video? Can you provide any evidence? Oh yeah, we'll send it to you. My car was hard parked in a parking lot at the car show all weekend. So I do IT for my day job. So of course I start kind of investigating, and Google, obviously, you know, start Googling, trying to dig in. So I'm like, I just Googled my name, put in Jeff Cantagallo, right? Sure enough, it pops up the show standings for the NOPI event, Maryland National Raceway. NOPI pops up. At the top of the page, it says it's a NHRA sponsored event. Well, I guess some brain surgeon, working for Geico, must have been Googling their, the clients or whatever, the underwriters or whatever they do to, for the policies, saw my name listed at a race event, and then they sent me a letter that they were dropping me.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So, of course I'm flipping out because, I was younger and, insurance is not cheap. And especially if you're associated with racing, then, it's just going to be insane for the rest of your life, right? It's it's a racket, right? So, I'm calling a couple weeks, go back and forth with them. Of course, they can't provide evidence because I didn't race. My car, again, it was hard parked at a car show.
Right.
All weekend. So there was no evidence. And so they reinstated me. I was like, cool. Called them up, said, all right, I cancel my policy because I was already looking for somebody else by that point. So I've never, ever heard anybody going to a car show and their insurance dropping them, right, because they were racing. But that was, yeah. So that was one of my memories from NOPI. I did place first at that show, by the way, so that was good. But yeah, good times.
Oh, man.
Then one of the things also, just want to mention, like going to like the indoor events, hot import nights, tuner evolution. Probably you gotta have certain amount of fuel in your tank, right? So that to me was always like so damn anxious.
Right.
I remember cruising out to hot import nights. We went to the one out in Dulles. I was following my buddy Doug. He was trailing his car. I was behind him in mine. I drove mine. And I'm literally like drafting behind the trailer trying to because I was on E and I needed to make it to the event, obviously, but I needed to make sure it was under, whatever it was, a quarter tank or I don't know what it was. But I was literally almost on E because a lot of times when you get there, they, they'll list, oh, your fuel has to be at this. But then you get there and oh, no, that's too much, and then they make you go drive around the parking lot and stuff. So I was literally on E driving out to that event. So yeah, I don't miss.
Yeah. Definitely.
One more story, and then I'll shut up. Driving down to NOPI, Atlanta. Trip was fine. Again, trailing my buddy Doug's his car. He had a Civic. Doug Sexton, you might remember him. He had the neon green with the clear hood.
Okay,
yeah, back in the day, yeah. So we've been up to PA and just kind of all over. He showed all over the place. So we showed. I showed with them at in their club back in the day. So we went down to NOPI. We had rented a brand new Expedition at the time. Trailered his car, open trailer. The hitch was kind of funky going down there, right? And I still make fun of him until today. Up to this point, I'm like, you didn't have the car loaded right. It wasn't balanced on the damn trailer, so the trailer would be all over the place, right? He would drive it, it'd be fine. I drive it, and I'm going the speed limit, and still I get start to get the wiggle, right? We ended up switching out the hitch. So that was on the way down. Coming back home, granted, you know how it is. You spend a weekend at a show and you're exhausted, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can't really sleep. You're away from home. You're in a hotel. I mean, you know how it is.
Yep.
So we're driving home. And mind you, you're trailing in a vehicle. It takes freaking, it just feels like it takes days. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And not to mention going down there, we left I don't know, 3 a.m. or something just to beat traffic. So, right off the bat, you didn't get good sleep. And then you're going down there, hanging out at the show all day, and then coming back home. You know how it is, right? So,
yep. Oh, yeah.
Coming home, I almost killed us.
Oh.
So, again, we swapped the hitch out. He would drive. We were almost home. We were probably near King's Dominion, if you can picture that, on 95, right? And granted, we're in Maryland, right? So we were almost home. Booney, I took all 4 lanes of 95. That's how bad this trailer was swaying. It was to the point. He was in the back seat, and Jen was with me at the time. She was pregnant, I think, with our oldest at the time. And the truck starts swaying. Doug lays down, and we just got on off the exit to merge onto the highway, and he lays down to rest because he drove most of the way, right? And it's his baby, so he's like, all right, I'm gonna suck it up, drive most of the way. We get on the highway, Booney, that damn thing starts going like this. He gets up because he was laying down. He looks back, and he didn't see the car behind the truck anymore because that's how far. All I hear is click, click, and he puts his seatbelt on. And of course, so if I would have touched the brakes, that the trailer would have came around on us, and we would have been done.
Yeah.
Because we were cruising. We were probably doing, I don't know, 65, 70 miles an hour. And I'm looking back rearview mirror just to for awareness to see where everybody is on the highway. And literally, traffic behind us was like, stop. You see a wall of cars, and I'm like, I had fingerprints in the steering wheel, and the only thing I could do to correct it was like speed up, right, to get the trailer straightened out. Once it's straightened out and settled down, and he had his car, it had air ride, so he had his car. I think he had like jack stands to kind of underneath the car to kind of hold it, and he had it strapped down. It came off. It hit the side of the put a nice dent in the side of the car. Yeah, and I felt bad. Obviously, I was driving. I'm like, I'll fix it. I'll get and he calls me up like a week or two later, and he's like, yeah, it's gonna cost I don't know how many few $1,000s, and I'm just like, Then he starts laughing, and I'm like, I got you. I'll pay it. I'm responsible. I was driving, even though his ass didn't strap the car up the right way. It wasn't balanced on the damn trailer, right? Because I still bust his chops. He's like, it was fine when I was driving it. And then he starts laughing, after he's telling me this, because I'm like, whatever, man, I'll pay. He's like, he starts laughing, and he had a body shop that sponsored him, so they were just gonna fix it or whatever. So. Yeah, so I almost killed, my buddy Doug, Jen, unborn child, wrecked his car, wrecked the expedition, But thankfully, I still, he sends me, matter of fact, he sent me a meme yesterday busting my chops. Anytime you see those videos where the trailers are, going crazy and they end up flipping over, I just respond back. I'm like, did you die? But did you die? I had it under control. Yeah. So that was a memory, traveling down the NOPI, coming back home. Yeah. And, anyway,
that's the fun part. The trips are the fun part.
The trips are they're nerve wracking when you're in, in the middle of it. But this is years later. I don't know, 15 years later or whatever it is, and we still talk about it.
Yeah.
Just like you guys wrenching in the garage, I'm sure there's so many memories and so many stories, and that's what it's about at the end of the day, right? God, yeah, that was such a nerve-wracking time. And let's talk about, are you good on time? We're over an hour now. Yeah. You guys okay? All right, cool. Steph's good over there?
You good? Yep, she's good.
She's probably learning a lot about you too, I'm sure, right? Let's talk about social media, how it influences the scene. We touched a little bit on it earlier, but the good and the bad, right? So we talked earlier about, just kind of people running their mouths, but we talked about the other aspect of just being able to keep in touch with people and being able to connect, because like you said, like Sean back in the day, that was through magazines and going and seeing his builds, but like now, we have the ability to be able to connect, like you and I are doing this video podcast. We wouldn't have had the ability to do that back in the day,
Right.
So let's chop it up about that a little bit. What do you think? What do you think about social media?
I have my feelings on social media, but it definitely has its goods. I do like to follow and see what certain people are doing occasionally with what they're building, like what we're talking about. It's cool to see the way that people do certain things, but on the other hand, it was always cool I was always excited to go to the mailbox and see when a magazine arrived, or you had to go to the bookstore on this certain day because the new issue of Super Street or Minitruckin was coming out to see what was going to be in it. I kind of missed that, and social media definitely killed print media.
Yeah, there's no element of surprise anymore, right?
No,
and I mean, you can fault CarShowz.com a little bit for that. I mean, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's more so like even when people are just building something nowadays, I feel like they're just quick to post up like,
Right.
here's my next thing, or here's my debut, or I miss going to shows and seeing the the unveiling, right? Or like
Right.
you said, even just if you're not able to make it to the show, you get your next subscription of your magazine, you open it up and you can check out the build. It's got the build, the build sheet in there, and you can
Right.
see detailed pictures of the build. Nowadays, you go to Joe Bob's, page, and he's got, oh, here's my new paint job, here's my
Yep.
interior, here's my new wheels, and then you go to the show and you're like, okay, yeah, I already saw this.
Yep.
So
Yeah, like with just like with my wheels, like I said, only a handful of people knew that I had those wheels. And I talked to my buddy Jason. He has a pickle fab and has a YouTube channel and whatnot. And I asked him, I said, hey, would you be interested in making a video just for when we leave for mini nats, just just to put it out there, just with the wheels on the truck and whatnot. And he said absolutely, and he did a hell of a job. And we incorporated my daughter Jayla into it. She drove the truck for the first time.
yeah, that was awesome.
Scared shitless, but
I'm sure.
I wanted her to drag the truck so bad, and she's like, nope, not dragging it. But her driving it was like a proud dad moment for me. I'm like, that was pretty cool. But like that was cool because like I'm not big on like the whole debut thing. But it was cool to say, hey, I got a new set of wheels that nobody really knew about. This is what they are, and instead of just posting a picture of them, and
it was a nice way. Yeah, a nice way
put
to
a lot
put
of
that
time
out
and
there.
effort into it. And
Yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
pretty
again,
cool.
creating memories, right? So
Yeah.
you got your buddy that has, the pickle fab, and he's got the YouTube, and then you got your daughter involved again.
Yep.
So I think that was best way to, debut the wheels. That's awesome.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I know, Minitruckin magazines now, they came back out with print, and trying to think there's a couple other print magazines, Local Rides. He does a print magazine. ECS does. And it's like, I still get excited. Like I just ordered the new issue of ECS because they were at the Street Rod show,
Mhm.
and took a picture of my truck, and I'm like, my truck's in print. You know what I mean? Like that's still cool. I'm 40. Okay. I'm 45 years old, and I still get excited when I see a picture of my truck in a magazine. It's like, that's cool.
Somebody actually appreciates your truck, your build, to want to actually take a picture of it and feature it in the magazine. So yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah,
and even like we did the Eastwood Summer Classic car show yesterday. Real small show. A lot of old school guys, a lot of old school muscle car guys, and it's the same thing. There's the car show and cruise guide that they publish out in this area here, and we had a few of them set out, and we had our website and our flyers for the website, and there's a lot of guys are like, it's just something about holding a magazine, or just being able to flip through the pages versus just surfing the internet.
Yep.
And I guess it's cool too, because like when you pick up a magazine to read articles or just to look at the pictures or whatever, you're focused.
Right.
I don't know about you, but when I get on the internet or anything, I'm just like, I get sidetracked so easy. You know? And then you got somebody messaging you, or some notification pops up, and then you go down another rabbit hole. So there's no real focus, It's just like I don't know. So the magazine is nice because you can, kind of brings you back to sitting in the back seat of the Nomad, just chilling, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Flipping the pages. Yeah.
Yep.
And then just we used to do stuff with Street Trends magazine back in the day, right?
Oh yeah.
I used to write articles for them and do photos and stuff with Lance and those guys, and it was awesome because it was local. And they went to all the shows, and just learning the amount of effort that goes on to just produce a magazine, of that magnitude, the amount of people that have to be involved, and then just dealing with the print house and making sure they get it right. I mean, even like the Minitruckin magazine, the binding, right? They had to get that fixed, and now they're dealing with shipping issues, right? Because people aren't, people just don't understand the amount of effort that goes into these.
Yeah.
You know, really at the end of the day, support them, subscribe, pay the $20 for, you know, because I think are they doing it, is it quarterly or something, I think, right?
It's like bi-monthly or it's quarterly or bi-monthly or something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
bottom line is support them, you know, pay
Right.
the money, $20. We spend money on so much crap. I mean, really,
Right.
like, you know, if you think about it, right? So
Right.
I always say, like, even just photographers, you know, people that are you know, bringing their show vehicles to shows, the vendors, we all have a part, right? And if we don't do our part, the community doesn't thrive, you know? So, you know, even just going and buying a t-shirt from the vendor, you know, we just got to do our part to help keep the scene going, you know?
Right.
So point being is with print magazine, you know, again, a lot of these guys are trying to bring them back, right? Very first thing I did is subscribe, and I'm sure like you did and others, right? Just to make sure we're supporting and doing our part to keep them going. But people just need to understand, like, just be patient, as you said earlier, with anything. Even just with custom parts being shipped out to you, just be patient. Same thing with the magazines, right? To get it right, it takes time within reason. I mean, right? Because it is our hard-earned money that's going into these things, and if you aren't receiving your product for 6 months or something, you know, then you know, reach out and ask what's going on, and if they respond, you know, cool. If not, then I can see people being pissed off. But
Right.
I think we touched on everything except for I want to talk about Booneywear. So I think it's awesome. I think it's cool because it shows the other creative side of you, right? So you have your builds that you've displayed over the years. So now you have apparel, right? T-shirts and such.
Right. It's basically just a little side thing. So
I think it's awesome. Yeah. So you're doing all the design and printing or everything at home.
Yep.
And then shipping stuff out and
Yep.
So
pretty much everything.
What was the inspiration behind that?
So really my cousin out in Columbus, he had the ability to do it, and a couple years ago, I went out for the Good Guys show, went out to visit family and go to the Good Guys show. And I asked him, I said, can we make some t-shirts for me? And he said, absolutely. And I said, but I just want to put like some quirky sayings and stuff on the back of them. And he said, okay, that's no problem. And like the one that basically started it all off was, what was it? Feed me chicken tenders and tell me my truck is pretty. That's like the original one that started it all off.
Okay.
And so then, like, you know, we made some other ones. It was like a fat guy on a stripper pole with like glitter vinyl, and it said, "We'll dance for mini truck parts." And it just started going from there with just funny things on the back.
Yeah.
So last year at Carlisle, we were all just standing around at the truck show, and actually my buddy Harry was like, dude, why don't you just start making your own shirts? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, dude, just call it Booneywear. And I'm like, I don't know. And like all weekend, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, So I just start like looking at stuff online, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. And I mean, I've made a ton of stuff, like just dumb sayings on the back. My nephew has a wrestling promotion that he does, and I've made their wrestling promotion shirts. And
awesome.
Yeah, there's a lady out in Pittsburgh. It's in the club. She has her own brand called Low Mama. I do some of her stuff, and you know, it's just fills in time here and there. I could go weeks or months without doing anything, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, "Hey, can you make me a shirt?" And I'm like, "Yeah." You know, it's just very basic stuff, but it's
fun.
Yeah.
It fills the time. I mean, like you and I have talked, you know, like just life in general gets hectic, you know, you know, family, work, you know, and you and I have talked just on the outside, you know, just as friends. And like I always say, just occupy your time. Right.
Yep.
And I mean, here I am doing the video podcast, right. And the photography and the website. I like doing the technical. So it fills your time and you're having fun with it. And you know, at the same time, if you can make a couple of bucks, cool. You know, if not,
Right.
as long as you're, like I say with CarShowz, as long as we're breaking even, I'm okay. You know, it's a
Right.
hobby.
Yep.
So is it just t-shirts? Do you do, stickers or hats or anything like that?
Basically just like t-shirts and hoodies.
Okay.
Can do very basic stickers. It's all just basic,
Yeah.
just pretty basic stuff.
Yeah. Simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to get into a little more in-depth things. I'm just trying to keep it very simple. That way it's not
Manageable.
expensive.
Yeah.
So
Keep it manageable.
Yeah.
That's the same thing I do. Like again with CarShowz, and we have the truckshows.com website, and
Right.
everything I do, I don't want to have to work my day job, come home, and then hours into like updating the
Right.
website so yeah, it's manageable. If somebody puts an order in, you give yourself enough time to create, fulfill that order.
Yep.
And have fun while you're doing it too,
yeah.
right? I mean, I know your daughter's creative. Is she involved in this at all?
Occasionally.
Okay.
Most of the time it's when I can't figure something out.
The technical side of it.
Yeah, if she's at the house, I'll yell up, because I do all my stuff in the basement. I'll yell up to her and be like, "Come down here and show me how to do this." Or I'll
She helped you get
FaceTime
set
her.
up, right?
What's that?
Like she helped you initially, I think, get set up, right?
Yeah,
With all your gear
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had no clue how to do any of the stuff. So, but yeah, she'll help me occasionally with stuff and help me
Yeah,
figure out how to do things.
I go down rabbit holes all the time, and Jen laughs at me. Like, I get bored, right? So like, I think same thing with you. Like, you're like, I want this shirt, and you create it. I mean, you have the flexibility to create it. I go to graphic disorder, and I say, hey, design me a shirt. I want because I want a new CarShowz shirt. I'm getting bored of the
Right.
ones I'm wearing or whatever. And then you got to put an order in, and you got to order so many to keep the price down, and then
Right.
So I go down these rabbit holes of like, I just wanted it comfortable. I got tired of wearing like the Gildan black t-shirts that everybody makes, right? And I'm sure you're in the same boat. You're like, I want
Right.
something different. I'm getting tired of the same brand t-shirt, right?
Yep.
Because over time you wash those things, they get stiff
Yep.
and they're just not comfortable. So
Oh yeah.
I reached out to Brant Graphic Disorder and I said, hey guy, like, what's the most comfortable shirt? Like, what is so next level, real soft,
Yep.
Cool. So put in an order just with the simple, because we got the new CarShowz logo done. I wanted a text logo, something easy to read, something we can put as the watermark on our photos and that kind of thing.
Right.
And, I don't know, a couple hundred shirts later, of course, different sizes. So then, Lonnie and Todd and those guys, Garage Gear Clothing, right? So they have, they have a massive vending trailer now, and just same thing with DRIVN, and Harv and those guys, and Tara and KIK, and so looking at what they're doing, I'm not going and buying a vending trailer or anything, right? But looking at how they're presenting their products, right? So all their shirts are wrapped. So I was like, all right, what do I need to do? Went down that rabbit hole. So we go and get the shirt folding, the plastic to fold the shirts. I go and order a bunch of plastic, to be able to wrap the shirts and put size stickers on there. And so again, it fills my time. It keeps me sane, right? Even though I get anxious and my wife, like, she'll look at me in the eye and she'll be like, calm down, and I'm like, just don't tell me to calm down. Like, and she just laughs at me, but she's like the organized. She can sit down and she'll get everything laid out for me and, get the shirts folded. She'll sit there for hours, So I went down that rabbit hole. And I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, you put all this time, energy, and effort and money into these things. And at the end of the day, we may sell a couple of shirts, right? I mean, because, you have all these automotive businesses that, and again, when people are pick and choose where they're going to spend their money,
Right.
it's important to them. And, and I don't take offense. Like, even yesterday, I was tickled because I think we sold 6 shirts. But again, $20 a pop, at the show. Of course, if you have them listed online, which we do have an online store,
Right.
you add in the taxes, the shipping, so for a hat and t-shirt at the end of the day, I can't ask somebody to spend their hard-earned money on paying $60 for a shirt and a hat.
Right.
And if they do, I'm like ecstatic. I'm like, you know, hey, you know, they love us, you know, they're supporting us. I guess my point is stick with Booneywear, right? It fills your time. It's fun. It's something you and your daughter can you know, when you need help and you can yell up to her and call her down or whatever.
Right.
You and your, you know, Steph can get, you know, she can help you, whatever, you know, again, it's just something to keep you busy.
Right.
And as long as you're not spending all of your money like I do and buying a few hundred shirts and shirt folders and plastic, you know, bags and stickers and, you know, I have bins of t-shirts and like, that's the other thing is like, I'm probably the only one that wears the damn things, you know, like, I mean, you know,
I go to shows and people are like, "Oh, did you bring any shirts with you?" I'm like, "Nah, I make all my shirts to order, man. Like, I don't." They're like, "Oh, okay." When I take my shirts to give them to somebody, they're like in a Wise Markets or a giant plastic bag. Like, I'm like, "Here's your stuff."
I mean, and look, that's been years. Like, I've been that way. Like, so you know, again, we would get shirts in, and I had Alex of Konstant Designs, R.I.P. He used to do all of our stuff. You know, huge.
Right.
Like all of the race teams and stuff, like he would design and print shirts and stuff. And he was one of the first ones I reached out to design one of our original OG, you know, CarShowz shirts back in the day. Right. And it was cool because I took our photos, you know, coverage that we did from shows and picked like 3 vehicles or whatever. And I think Shannon's truck was on one, Hippo had a GTR. Like I wanted to kind of cover the all genre thing, right? That, you know, back in the day, all the different vehicles. So that was one of our first shirts that we put together, and to design, and even to this day, like they don't charge much. Like, and I'm like, how, like, because there's some guys out there that are charging hundreds of dollars, and I'm like, I can't afford, right? If you're designing a shirt, and that's like your point is like keeping it simple, I think is the absolute way to go. Yeah. But if you're paying for the design, you're paying for the shipping to ship the shirts to you, because you know obviously 3-4 huge boxes, right? Those are going to cost probably $30 a box, if not more. Yep. You got to factor that into the cost of your shirts, right? So yeah, like back in the day, I would order a bunch of shirts just like for our team of photographers or whoever and us, you know, and just kind of Jen would go through and fold them up, throw them in a bin. We would take a couple of bins with us to shows because just like you, people were asking. But the crazy damn thing is people are asking for them. Then you bring them out, and you're like, all right, here's my shirts, and nobody wants them. You know, like nobody's. So it's like you're lugging this crap all over the place with you, and you know. So let's just say vending's probably not for me. I like to go out to the shows and chop it up. Like yesterday, I bought a 10x20 tent. I'd go to shows and set up a 10x10 tent, right? But everybody wants to cram under the tent and hang out, especially if it's hot.
Right.
So I'm finally like, all right, this past year, I'm like 10x20, you know, it's huge. I was dead tired, Booney, setting that damn thing up. By the time I was done, I was ready to go home, man. You know, we're all, because it's Jen and my oldest daughter, you know, and my youngest was actually working. She works at Eastwood, right? And that's the store you stopped at when you came through here.
Okay.
Right? So she's working over there now. Okay. And the manager of the store, Craig, he's my neighbor, right? Okay. So it's crazy. It's, again, small world. So, but anyway, we're there and we're like stretching the legs out of the tent, you know, before you can actually pop it up. And man, I was so damn tired. And then we had to put the canopy on there and get everything lined up. And I'm anxious. And Jen's like, again, looking, calm down, you know, like, I'm like, okay. So we got everything set up, got the walls Velcroed up, and it looked great. I mean, I don't know if you saw pictures of it.
Yeah, I saw it. It looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got the tablecloth. So the crazy thing is, like, we have a podium, another tablecloth, like a truckshowz.com tablecloth. So we didn't put everything out. I got sidewalls, flags, you know, I didn't put those out. But it looked like the setup looked good. It looked professional. Gave us a place to hang out for the day. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to do it often. Setting up at these damn shows, man, is so much work. It's so much work. You know, now I understand why these vendors, Lonnie touched on it, I think, a little bit about garage gear and the reason of like having, it was Modified Rides, Brandon Burrell's podcast. And Lonnie was interviewed a week or so ago on that. And he mentioned, you know, just like going out, mini nets, I think it was, you know, you have all these vendors with the trailers. If it's raining, they can continue to sell. You know, people are still coming up to the trailers or whatnot. If you have a tent, you don't want to put your product out because you don't want to risk getting it wet, and you guys don't want to get wet. And, you know, so they're hanging out in the truck, and he's like, yeah, we need to get a trailer. So
Yeah.
I'm not to the point, like I would roll up in like an RV or something maybe, you know, and that way I can park and just be done, you know, put the awning
Yeah.
out or whatever and just hang out, you know. So now I get why these vendors have these trailers, because I'm like, dang, you know, these trailers are massive. Plus, if
Right.
you do custom build outs, you know, in my mind, I'm like, how many damn t-shirts do you need to sell to make up for the cost of these
Right.
vending trailers?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
So
lot of money. Definitely a
anyway,
lot.
yeah. So bottom line is, I again, I ranted. I went down a whole rabbit hole. Apologize, but keep going. You know, keep it simple, like you had planned, but just keep it going because it fulfills that time, right? And it's
Right.
and if you want to step it up and take it to the next level a little bit, again, that's what we've done with CarShowz over the years. We've evolved, right, and phased our, you know, kind of phased it out, right, and like we didn't have a tent. We didn't have shirts to begin with. We didn't have a tent.
Right.
You know, now we have a little bit of a bigger tent. And, you know, maybe when I retire, I will get a vending trailer or something, just travel around and not to make money off of it. But, you know, again, the goal is always to try to break even, but more so just trying to keep up with the connections and the networking with, you know, with
Yeah.
people in the scene.
Right.
So am I going to see like a little Booneywear trailer behind the S10 one of these years?
I mean, if I do what I want to do with the Rukus, you might see a trailer behind the S10 pulling the Rukus.
All right. And then you can probably throw a couple of bins of t-shirts on there, I'm sure,
Possibly.
right?
Possibly.
Right on. Cool, man.
Possibly.
So just for the audience, once we conclude, what I'm going to do is Booney gave, you know, there's a list of people you want to thank. So I'll make sure we add those into the credits. You know, Glenn Michael, we talked about Glenn. There's Anthony Nardo, of course, your dad, and Steph, you know, your daughter. So we'll get everybody listed in there. Everybody that's been a part of, you know, inspiration to you, part of your life, helping with the truck build. So we'll get those listed out. Is there any other shout outs you want to give on air? Actually, let me ask this real quick. Again, I'm just blabbing. I'm Italian, you know, start using my hands, just start going, you know. How can we find you at Booneywear? Where do we find Booneywear?
I'm actually on Instagram and Facebook, just under Booneywear.
Okay. And we'll add links to those as well.
Yeah,
I very much appreciate your time. We're about an hour and a half. Very awesome conversation. To me, like this session here is like, it's again, creating memories, right? I mean, got to learn about you, got to learn about your family. You know, when we go to shows, you have time to chop it up a little bit, but we're always on the go. You know, either you get there, again, you get set up, you're hungry, I get hangry, got to go find food. Then you kind of just want to rest and kind of walk around and look at some of the vehicles, you know. So we may have like Grounded for Life. We had a couple minutes to kind of chat it up. I got my hug, so I was good. So I was good for the day.
Go visit family. Every time you're Grounded for Life, you got to go visit family. So
I did, and I dipped out. So we blasted through. We blasted through in record time to cover the show. And then, you know, my goal was I wanted to dip out by noon or so. And, you know, again, my mom and dad are probably about 5 minutes or so from the show. And I went home and ordered a cheesesteak. So, yeah, it's all good. Hey, Booney, it was nice talking to you, brother. I appreciate you. Yeah, until next time, I'll see you at a show near you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.